You got
all right. It is July 17th, 2025, and we are live. Welcome to Off the Record with Brian Hart. I am Brian Hart. Today, I've got Ross Gerber, CEO of Gerber Kawasaki, and I've got Fred Hubler, CEO of Creative Capital Wealth Management Group. Soon, we're going to have Dave Briggs joining us from the Sanity Podcast. I think he just dropped in right now.
I just did his podcast.
Mark Fusetti is unable to make it today. He is the new author of a book called Philly Warrant Unit. Mark shared some passages with me months ago from the book. It's an amazing read. I guarantee you all check it out. That book is launching next Tuesday. Make sure you check it out, and we will get Mark on an episode in the future. Let me bring Dave in, and let's start the party. All right, Dave, you are on. I just gave you proper introduction. Ross,
I never see Dave. I never see this guy.
What's up, Ross? Long time.
Long time. I saw that you were on the show too, and I was like, was that meant to be?
I think it was, brother. I think it was. It's the magic.
We've got Groundhog's Day going on.
Gerber Briggs magic. It needs to come to it needs to be a regular thing, Ross.
I know. I mean, I like your show.
Gerber Briggs sounds like a good law firm too. I like that. All offices.
My brother actually is a lawyer, so.
So Ross, let's start with Tesla. I mean, we definitely want to talk about Elon. Elon, obviously, as he's done for his entire career, especially the past decade, has dominated headlines. He is definitely dominating headlines right now. Let's talk about Tesla because, I mean, Ross, you and I have known each other for many, many years. You have said very nice things about him. You have been critical of him. I have done the same back when I wrote for Inc. magazine, and to this day, when he does things I like, I am a big cheerleader. When he does things I don't like, I'm going to call it out. Ross, what do you like about Tesla right now? Let's start with the positive.
Right now? Well, there's two ways to look at it. It's funny. I was thinking about a bumper sticker the other day that should say, like, I love Tesla despite Elon, and, for me, it's about climate change and Tesla, when it came out, there were no electric vehicles on the road at all. And originally when I saw the Model S and what Tesla was doing, and I knew of Tesla before because I'm in Santa Monica and they were in Santa Monica. So I'd seen their actual office and their original Roadster, but I thought it was like a prototype or whatever. So when the Model S came out and they went public, we were kind of in the prime position to learn about Tesla early on. And when I learned about Tesla, I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, if they can make these cars and sell them, like, we're going to have electric cars. The enemies of America all fund themselves through oil. And so you have climate change as one issue, and then you have like the enemies of America as another issue. And back then, America wasn't really as energy independent as it is today. So if you go back to 2010 or 2013 or whatever Tesla went public, America was still ramping up oil production. We were still very beholden on Iran and Russia and Venezuela and all these kind of bad countries. And so, Tesla is so successful at achieving its original mission, which was advancing sustainable transportation and energy, that today when you get on the road, there's EV, especially where I live in California, which, is a lot of cars, in California, there's EVs and hybrids everywhere. And I'm really proud of the fact, and I think that's something Elon should be really proud of, and Tesla, because without Tesla, and we can talk about the future, which might not be as easy as the past, but without Tesla, we would not have electric vehicle infrastructure. We would not have electric vehicles as ubiquitous as a choice for consumers, and many choices now in the electric vehicle market from many different companies all around the world. And even better yet, we convinced China to buy in to the electric world, and they were the largest increase of pollution in the world was basically from China as an emerging market over the last decade. And the fact that China has bought into this electric world and most of Europe, we've gotten, in my mind, over the hump where what Trump's doing and these rollbacks will not ultimately hurt electric vehicle adoption longer term, because I think consumers get it. So I love Tesla. I would love to see Tesla refocused on what Tesla does best. I think I like to try to explain there's a separation between Tesla and Elon. Like part of Tesla is Elon and part of Tesla is Tesla. And so the part of Tesla that's Tesla, I love, and I want to see them be successful, and I still own the stock. And it's kind of a painful thing for me at this point.
But Ross, how do you separate the two? Like, there is no separate entities there. Tesla is Elon. Elon is Tesla. And the lack of strategy he's poured in the last few years is astounding when you consider that, what is it, like 80% of EV buyers are liberals. So you go ahead and piss all them off,
right,
by spending $250 million to elect Trump. And now you think, all right, maybe I'll go with the MAGA conservatives that don't buy EVs. And now you've pissed them off,
right,
by leaving Trump and starting America Party. And so who is his constituency now? Who are his customers? Right. Who are the Tesla bros now? I don't know if there's any left.
Right. And what I think is most people buying new Teslas are people who already own a Tesla and just replacing their Teslas. I don't think they're actually getting new consumers anymore. If anything, they're losing them to other competitors, whether it be Rivian and Lucid. We've seen Lucid's numbers improve dramatically while the Model S sales have dropped down substantially, and these are a really nice car. And so, to see Lucid taking the Model S business and X business is really sad to me. So yeah, but remember, I was an investor in Apple during the Steve Jobs era, and I was a big fan of Steve Jobs and still am. And, thank God he didn't have Twitter, right? And so, when Steve Jobs died, there was this shock that we all went through, because he didn't really, he lied and didn't tell people he had cancer until it was too late, and it was a really, every client called me and was like, are we selling our Apple? And I was like, well, we want to give this Tim Cook a chance. And there's so much innovation at Apple that hasn't played out yet. And it turned out to be really smart to give Tim Cook a chance, and he's done phenomenally well. So I would make the argument that if Elon dropped dead, that if somebody took over Tesla, I think Tesla would still be successful. Okay. Maybe more so. Right.
Probably more so.
Especially if they refocus on what people really want, which are EVs. They don't want taxis. Okay. And so, the EV business is still growing rapidly all around the world. It's just Tesla's turned off people. And I've noticed a big difference ever since Elon got kicked out of the MAGA group. There's been less negative towards him, actually, in some ways, because he was so polarizing as MAGA. Now he's sort of out of the political media to some degree, and that's been a bit helpful. But the less he does, actually, the better Tesla does. The more he says, the more people he turns off. So almost everything he does turns off people now. And so it's kind of sad to me. And I've known Elon and interacted with him for a long time. And what I just tell people is he's changed, there's things change, and you can make it, because of drugs or because of fame or because of money or whatever, or a combination of all of those things. But it's not the same guy who was really desperate for money, 8 years ago, and Tesla was on the brink of failure. It was actually only 5 or 6 years ago. So 5 years ago was Tesla's heyday, when everything worked out and everything was supposed to fail. And then we succeeded in launching the Model 3. And really, over the last 4 years, or pretty much since 22, when he took out Twitter, it's been a really rough ride.
Mm-hmm. And Fred, I mean, I know you like to watch tech manufacturing, just industry disruptors. And when you've watched this disruptor's journey,
sure,
what especially to where it is today, you don't have to talk specifically.
Full disclosure, I own Tesla stock. I have a Tesla. I should have bought the stock sooner and the car later. Get better deals on it now. And I've never had a car that's been so divisive. I love tech. I love fast cars. And when I first bought it, people.
How long have you had it?
Huh?
How long have you had the car?
No, 2020.
Okay, so you've had it for a while.
Yeah, so it's paid off. It's done. And it's been upgraded since I got it. So I'm very bullish. So the thing that I think Elon brings, that everything in the world that we see that's man-made was a contrarian idea at some point, even a chair. You know, if I bring a chair to a meeting and we never saw a chair, you guys are looking at each other like, Fred, is the floor not good enough for you? And I think Elon did that in automobiles. And so I'm seeing design cues of a Tesla in other cars, which means that was the right cue. And it's got so much momentum. To Ross's point, it doesn't really need Elon. You needed the disruptor to disrupt, but they're not the people to maintain and grow. And, you know, Apple wouldn't be where it was if Tim Cook came before. You know, like, you need to have the disruptor, and then you need to have the stabilizer. We don't have the stabilizer of Tesla. I think the thing that is undervalued, underappreciated, and underexplored is the infrastructure within Tesla and the ease of use. Like, it had a squeak I didn't like, and so I put it in. The car knew I was in service. I got Uber credit to go buy an Uber. I'm even out of warranty. I'm like, dude, I didn't expect this, but okay, I'm Ubering I probably spent like $50 in Uber just getting places I would have driven myself. And that technology, I didn't talk to a person. I could have if I wanted to. And so the charging network, it's hard for everyone else to catch up. And now the one thing that I think he does, and because of the world we live in, even good news isn't always, you know, spread out because of who said it. And again, it doesn't matter what side. He's given away patents that other companies would have killed.
Well, yeah, like my wife's Rivian works at the supercharger now, and that's great. You know?
And now you have to work with traffic, and you have to make sure. So now if you're a Tesla owner, you can reserve spaces, and it'll reserve my space for me before Ross's wife's Rivian if it's a Tesla charger, which is the way it should be technically. And so there's Grok going to be in the car, which is going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. You know, assuming that it works outside. And a lot of the disrupting part of Elon, I don't think we've seen the full upside. If he would just like with the other guy, if we just say a third of what they were thinking, the world would be much stabler for everyone.
Well, I don't put out anything that I'm thinking most of the time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, most of my thoughts,
the whole world's listening.
Like,
for something.
I have like really extreme, like ridiculous thoughts all the time, and I just don't share them. You know, it's like I don't even share them with like people in my office. You know, like
there's no upside. Like,
there's no upside.
They agree with you, or they move their account.
You want to hear my rant on homelessness? People will hate me. You know, and it's like, so I just don't put it out there. And I'll tweet stuff, and I won't actually send it. I'll like put it in the Twitter, like I'm going to send it. I just delete. And that's like almost half my tweets. And then I delete probably another 80% of the tweets I actually do, you know, because I'm like, people are going to read this wrong.
And I have separate meme chats with people, and I know they're and I know what they find funny. I find everything funny on both sides. Like, at the end of the day, the more crazy it is, the more it's funny.
Yeah,
and
like,
so
the ESPY Awards yesterday, the ESPY, the Sean Gillis.
Oh yeah. At least he's an Eagle fan. That was
it's
awesome.
like every joke you want to say, like he actually said,
right.
And it was hysterical. Like, I thought it was funny as hell.
And
people were like shocked, you know.
You expect that from a comedian, not a CEO of Tesla. And I think that's where you have responsibility. You know, Dave has responsibilities. We know where to put the filter, and maybe with our closest friends. And I only once mis-memed. I sent a meme from one group to another group, and they still laughed, but I know they weren't laughing. That wasn't the implied. So I have to be careful of that, because at least it's not public and it's not.
Well, I've made a lot
Twitter.
of mistakes, to be honest. You know, like painful errors that I've learned from. So I wouldn't say that I was perfect from the beginning, but over the years, you kind of like realize, like, what am I trying to do here? And that's the part that Elon doesn't get. I'm trying to like sell my services and build my company, not like be the most divisive financial advisor that's ever walked the earth. That's not my goal. You know,
you're not going to build a company because you're going to piss off half the people.
Oh, I mean, I already do. And so, like, you know, I had to, you know, and then when this election cycle came around, I was like, I'm not getting involved. And my team was like, thank God, Ross, please stay out of it. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to stay out of it because it's just lose-lose, you know, and I don't like either party either, which actually turns out to be a popular position. But like, ever since I got out of like really trying to affect like political discourse or social discourse, it's made it a lot easier on my team and on me. And I just realized, like, you're not really changing anybody's opinion in social media. You might get views and stuff, but you're not really like making the world a better place. You know, I used to think like, you know, because I'm a musician originally, and it's like you write songs and you try to make the world a better place. And when I got big on social, I was like, I'm going to try to make the world a better place. And what I realized is that social media itself makes the world a worse place, and you're just contributing to it. So, I realize if I'm going to make a difference, it's not going to be through tweeting divisive things about, Kamala Harris or something like that,
Right. And Dave, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I mean, on the discourse conversation, and we could talk specifically Elon, or we could talk generally. But I mean, what are you seeing? Because I know you're clearly active on social media. You're a veteran TV, anchor and journalist. What are you seeing that you like? What are you seeing that you hate?
With that, what I like is a very short list. It really is no list. I mean, what is interesting is I can't figure out if it's chicken or the egg in terms of the divisiveness that's out there, because everyone says to you, oh, I want a moderate news station that plays things down the middle. That's bullshit.
Right.
It's been tried. No one watches that stuff.
That's right.
And when I started a podcast called Sanity, and we try to look, I call out Republicans and Democrats on a daily basis. And it's very hard to get eyeballs on moderate content that does that. Almost anything that translates or that catches virality on social media or on a podcast or on YouTube is divisive in one corner. And again, chicken or the egg, I don't know if that is simply the algorithm or what people want. Truth is, I think it's both.
Well, it's from traditional television too. It's not just social media. When I was a kid, I was on, there was like those shows that people would get in fights on, they were talk shows. What was
Springer?
Jerry Springer.
Like Mort Downey Jr. show.
I loved it.
I went to the filming of the Mort Downey Jr. show when I was a kid. I met this guy. I spent the night with Mort Downey Jr. because I grew up in LA and my friend's dad was one of the producers, some bull crap. So we fly out to New York just to party when we were like high schoolers. And it was like, oh, you can go to the Mort Downey Jr. show and hang out with him. Well, he was a real son of a gun, and we go to the show and people are like throwing stuff at each other, and people love that. It was like, there were a bunch of those shows back in the day. But I'm on traditional networks all the time. And most of the traditional networks like love me because I'll confront the other guests. Like when they start saying a bunch of bullshit, I'll be like, excuse me, that's just like not true, and then the fight starts out and they love it. And then they'll be in my ear like, keep going, and it's like, so it's not, it's definitely the chicken, like the chicken wants fighting. And fighting is what sells, and people want to watch things that create emotion one way or the other, and that's what gets views. What's happened where the egg is now like that's all people care about is views. Like so, it's not quality of the chicken,
and the more extreme, the more views.
Yeah, it's just the more views. And in fact, if there's lower quality, a lot of times that gets more views than like a really intelligent debate about Tesla. I did this thing with Chanos once for the Wall Street Journal. It was just like a really intelligent debate about Tesla, and I destroyed him, and it was super fun. But it was like really civil, and it just doesn't get the same views as when I used to go on with Gordon Johnson and just destroy him on CNBC, and that thing would go viral. Everybody loved it, and I used to just eat this guy. Now, they consider me a Tesla bear now, even though I own the stock, and I'm not actually a Tesla bear. I'm an Elon bear, which is different. And, but we could all get along this whole show and we'll get less views than if somebody's like, Ross, you're wrong, and we have an argument,
Yeah.
So
Ross, you're wrong.
Yeah, exactly. See,
I actually, that was a great pivot. And this is an Elon topic again. But a few months ago, I had Carrie Healy, executive chair of the Forward Party, Andrew Yang's Forward Party.
Oh yeah.
Yep. She's also Mitt Romney's former lieutenant governor. She was former president of Babson College. We had an amazing chat about everything going on. And she talked a little bit about this third party, the Forward Party's goals. She said, listen, we don't have to win big majorities. If we can take a few House seats, and a couple of Senate seats, now everybody's pandering to us, the middle. And
That's
when
Elon's
she
strategy.
broke it down like that, that made a lot of sense to me. And Dave, you could disagree. Anybody could disagree.
No, it makes sense. It's just not going to happen. It's like
Right.
the news that I talked about. Listen, look at moderates in both the Republican and Democratic side. They are almost extinct. There were 10 Republicans that voted to impeach Trump. I think we'll be down to 1, because anyone that's considered anywhere in the moderate range in either party, this is both parties, they too get filtered out. Look, I would love the idea of the Forward Party succeeding. It will not. Now, I said this to Ross just the other day. I think if Mark Cuban can somehow join forces with a Andrew Yang or perhaps Elon's America Party, and you have $400 billion and someone who's charismatic, then maybe. But Elon might be the worst communicator the planet has ever seen.
Right. You know, the third party thing, see, what most people want to dismiss in this discussion is the fact that our system just wasn't really set up to have a third party. And so we have third parties, and we always have. There's the Green Party. That same woman runs every year. You know, I don't know.
Jill Stein?
Yeah, Jill Stein, right. And you know, you're like, why can't another party exist? And I used to do some stuff with the Democratic Party back when I was much younger. And there's an infrastructure that these parties have in every state, in every local community.
That kind of prevents it.
Yeah, it prevents it because it would cost you so much time and money to build this infrastructure. So the idea that you're just going to go into a few contested markets and push your party, you could do that in theory, but that's not the way voters vote, because a lot of times they have no idea who they're even voting for. So they'll get a pamphlet from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, and it tells you how to vote. You know, one of the things clients always ask us is like, who should we be voting for, especially in local elections? And we'll put together a little like cheat sheet, like, you know, here's who you really should be voting for, because, you know, most people, it's like really hard to find information on. You're not sure who you're voting for. Like these federal judges, you're voting for people you don't even know, right? And so it takes me actually a lot of time to figure this out, even locally. So people are going to vote for a Democrat or they're going to vote for a Republican. And what it is what Dave's saying is true, that over the years, the moderates have been forced certainly out of the Republican Party, and certainly the Democratic Party moderates basically don't exist much. But also but when I talk to actual people, I would argue that probably 75% of people are in the middle, leaning right or left. Like actually, if you ask them on the issues, you know, like, what do you think about gay marriage? Or what do you think about trans athletes? Or what do you think about the military? And if you just like tick off issues and then you say, well, if you're this, you're a Republican. And if you're this, you're a Democrat. Most people fall in the middle. And I'm friends with like tons of people all over the country that don't agree with me, you know, and it's fine. We have these great conversations and I'm right, he's wrong. Sometimes they're right, I'm wrong. You know, it's like, it's great. But what's happened is the extremists have hijacked the parties, and
that's where the money is. They can raise money.
That's right.
And
it's like this New York election. I don't even know where this crazy guy came from. He's running against a criminal, Eric Adams, and some guy involved with rape, like Cuomo. Like, I don't even know which Cuomo did the rapes or what's going on with that, you know. And I don't want to start saying controversial things because I'm trying to.
Now you're not going to say controversial things. Now
it was Andrew, not Chris.
Okay, so Chris just was the cover-upper. He was the cover-upper of the rapes.
He has been the PR mouthpiece of his father. But I will say, Mamdani's
it's his dad.
Cuomo getting in this race, Mamdani's going to win. Like, forget it. He's going.
Well, it's like, why don't they just have Howdy Doody run against this Mamdani and he would win? Howdy Doody would win. Who wants to vote for this guy?
Well, the smart people are smart enough not to be in politics.
Right.
Like, that's the end of the. I don't want to piss off half my people. And it's not just politics. You leave any system alone, you'll have a dichotomy: Coke, Pepsi. You got Burger King, McDonald's, iOS, and Google. All of that's Visa, MasterCard, Boeing, Airbus. Like at the end of the day, any system given enough time ends up with a dichotomy, and neither side both sides would be eliminated if the middle had any representation. You know,
Yeah,
if there's something
and
that could
remember,
work
it's
from your
supposed to be like a
phone.
bell curve kind of, right? Like, so
Yeah.
you're always going to have fringe politicians. It's just like, why do they have so much
Right.
power and all the people in the middle don't? You know, because if you break down the House, each district is small and they each vote in their own crazy person. And, you know, we have the California people we voted for. They represent me, you know, I think pretty well. And, you know, our senators and our Congress people. And, you know, so maybe part of our country's also just gotten kind of crazy too, which I would argue,
Well,
social media has just
43%.
rotted so many people at this point, you know.
43% of Americans are independents. That's the largest party in the country. 27%
Right.
to the right and 27% to the left. The biggest party in the country, and it's not particularly close, is independence. But to your point, the mechanism
party.
doesn't really allow.
Right. It's not set up for that. That's what happened to me. I was a Democrat, and over the years, they didn't even care about me anymore because I have money. They like disdain people who are entrepreneurs and business owners. God forbid you actually succeed. You know, like I didn't have money when I started. Okay. And it was like, you know, and then what I realized was like, they don't represent me at all anymore. You know, like, so a lot of the social issues would tick off. I'm a Democrat and I'm a liberal, but like that party doesn't represent me. And then the Republicans I've never been, and they represent me less than ever. I make this joke. I miss the George Bush Republicans. And at the time when I was a kid, I hated them. You know what I mean? So it's like, what happened to Mitt Romney and all those people? You know, it's like, I'd like say a prayer if they came back, but they're not, you know, and they're not coming back. So I think that the best way, so I was going to make this point that if you read the founding of America and you read about like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Ben Franklin, these were incredible men. Okay. They were super successful at what they did. They were the wealthy elite of the colonies. They were the thinkers, the doers, and they got into an existential crisis that they didn't think they were going to win, and they were all going to get killed by the crown, and they were not nice to people. Okay. They sent you to the Tower of London. Okay. The British were some of the worst people ever as imperialists. And like, they realized like we had to use every resource to become a free country. Like every able-bodied, intelligent person had to like step up and either fight or figure it out, or else America would have never been founded, you know? And what's happened over the last 225 years or whatever is it's just like the ball's gone down the hill as we've gotten more successful. Exactly what you're saying. The business people, the thinkers, the doers, they don't want to be in politics. They want to go do stuff. And our system kind of got to this point where now who's in politics, it's really like, it's like bottom feeders, you know, and like the skill set you need to be a good politician, like Gavin Newsom, for example, is being just a bottom feeder. He's probably one of the best looking bottom feeders you'll see at the bottom of the ocean, you know, and this guy
was meant to be a career. Like it was meant to be, you do your
yeah,
time,
that's like he was born and raised to be this,
Yeah.
you know, and he just thinks because he's good looking enough that that's going to be, you know, going to work for him, you know.
He's the front runner, man. He is the front runner. If you look at Kalshi
like
right
everybody
now,
in your own state hates you, but you want to be president.
I will say this: the betting markets have been right time in and time out. I mean, Kalshi got both Trump elections. They got Mamdani, and right now it is Newsom, then AOC, and then Buttigieg in that order. I don't agree with it.
Hold on.
Those are our choices.
You've got some Pennsylvania guys. Is Josh Shapiro not ranked?
Not in their top three.
Okay.
No.
Interesting.
I do believe Josh Shapiro.
He's sharp.
Wes Moore, Governor Beshear of Kentucky. Those would be.
I like Buttigieg.
favorites.
Actually, I just, you know, I don't know if this country's going to elect a gay president, but I like him. I think he's really smart. I don't know if this country's ready for it. You know,
So, I agree with you. I do not think they are.
Let's pivot because clearly public policy right now is influencing macroeconomics here in the United States and the global economy too. Just, I mean, every day it's like drinking out of a fire hose with the big headlines or tweets or whatever that are rocking markets and rocking economies. The big story that just surfaced over the past less than 48 hours is the potential that the administration tries to oust Jay Powell.
oh yeah,
the end of his term. Fred, I want to kick this over to you, and there's other macro topics I want to talk about, but this thing just exploded in less.
My crystal ball, which I do have, is kind of cloudy right now. Fed isn't federal; it's not really a bank. Like there's a lot of stuff and baggage that will, and I don't want to know the facts because at the end of the day, I just want to make enough money to support my family and stay out of trouble and help my clients. Blah blah blah. At the end of the day, I think. The tone change of I think the $2.8 billion Federal Reserve building upgrade is going to be used as evidence to get rid of them because you can't just fire them because you want it to be lower and you decide not to be lower. Like you just can't do it. It was meant to be church and state and always meant to be separate. I don't think that ever should change. If we're going to have a Fed, the Fed can't be political, but it kind of already was for the other side, which is also that wasn't right either. And that's if the pendulum can go back in the middle and not have to keep going back and forth. And if you're in charge, my government's going to go after you. And when I'm in charge, my government's going to, that is not sustainable. That is what the Americans are not like. We do not want that on either side. And we should trust the government. But if you know history, the more you know history, the less you trust the government anyway. But at least for the stuff that we see, and it's obviously right there. So the thing with the Fed is they kind of said, hey, if these things happen, we'll consider doing these things. And then they don't always interpret the things the same way twice. And that seems a little cloudy. That seems a little like, well, why you're not doing it this time? You did last time. And there might be a valid answer. They don't have to give it. It is in the news cycle a lot. And I think the pivot of the news cycle now is, well, where'd that $2.8 billion come from? And what are they doing with it? And why can't they pay for it? I think there's more legs there because there's something that like people are like, yeah, why is that? Like we don't know enough. And whoever ate the fortune cookie that says you may live in interesting times, I'd like to strangle because I'd like to go back to president at times. Like every day it's like, oh, Area 51's on fire yesterday. I'm like, all right, I guess that's on my bingo card today. And the weirder things get, the more all of us are like, well, I guess that's what it is today. And I think the Fed thing should play itself out. Obviously, there's a ton of commercial real estate that's coming due for refinance.
Yeah, now you're getting to the point.
Much higher than what they originally thought.
And you know whose real estate's coming due right now?
Trillion. I think it's
Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Donald Trump, 40 Wall Street. Their loans come due this month.
Yep. And he's not alone. There's a ton of people that if interest rates don't go down, and it'll hurt Trump too, but there's a lot of people that are gonna turn in the keys, and it's going to create
it's been happening. It's been happening for years. People turning in keys because the numbers don't work on any real estate deal at 6.5% mortgages or 7% mortgages. I do real estate. I can tell you, there's no
everything works when it's interest free for 5 years. Like you can't not make. You should not. If you can't make money on zero interest, you got other issues. But now that zero interest coming in, there's demand for.
Well, like Trump's got those preferred loans from Deutsche Bank that were like 3%, 4% loans, and on big balances, let's say like 200 million. And that's what's coming due for him this month. All real estate has leverage. And if you go back, it was only 5 years ago when COVID hit, when rates went to zero, a lot of people in real estate I knew refinanced, like big time, cashed out, big time. And it was just like you take money out of your property on this loan. But the perception is like that's free money, but it's not actually. It's equity that you've taken out, and then you're going to have to refinance that in the future. And so what's happening, most commercial loans are 10 years. We've had zero interest rate for over 20 years. And so now every loan that matures is going in at 2-3% higher or more.
And banks love to lend you money when you don't need it. So all the banks are like, well, I'm not doing it. Trying to get a loan is really hard. But, so just saying like, we're going to force down rates, it should be 3% lower, which is what Trump's been saying. That helps. That's exactly the number he needs. There's a ton of other people that need it too.
This reveals the two core things of Trump. One, his authoritarian instincts. What do you want to be, Turkey? Look what happened with their interest rates. And two, his short-sightedness. Because I fancy myself more of a Wall Street Journal Republican than anything else. And they wrote today that what he doesn't understand is he's making it harder for the Fed to do what he wants every time he opens his mouth. And
that's correct.
The idiocy of Donald Trump. He's painted them into a corner where they can't cut rates because it will look like a political cave to him. This is
Well,
the
there's-
short-sightedness.
There's that, but these are real markets too. These are the markets that I function in. Okay. And there's short rates, which is what the Fed controls. And then there's long rates, which is what investors control. And exactly what you're saying, Dave, is 100% true. For example, the big ugly budget that he just passed is horrible if you want rates to go down. Why? Because we're going to borrow $5 trillion more in the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So who's lending us that money? So you have to offer a rate that somebody's willing to give you the money. So the second problem is if they lower the short rates, it creates more inflation. Okay. It creates more economic activity, which then actually forces up the longer rates, not down. Okay. Right. So actually what the Fed's doing is trying to get rates to go down, but all rates to go down, not the manufactured one of the Fed. And the only way you get that is if inflation goes down, because what's real is that I have cash and I need to put it into work at an amount above inflation and taxes. So if inflation now, and we always have figured since I started in this industry, a 3% inflation rate, that's what we always have projected. Okay. And so if you have 3% inflation, you have taxes, you got to earn 5% just to break even. Okay. And so why would I give the government money at a loss? Now, I just have been buying these inflation protected bonds lately, and I just bought one that pays me 1 3/4 above inflation for the next 8 years. And now I'm sitting here thinking, this is great. Doesn't matter what Trump does, because the more inflation there is, I still make my 1 3/4 above inflation. But if you buy a fixed bond, that's a 4 1/4, and inflation goes up, you're getting murdered on that over time. And so there are real things. So forcing Powell out to try to get somebody who's just going to lower rates so you can refinance short-term loans and floating rate loans at lower rates will only create more of a bubble and create more inflation and ultimately higher rates. For
I have a solution.
Everything else.
I think someone should take his phone, put it in airplane mode. That way, he thinks he posts the truth, Truth Social and Twitter, but he really doesn't. And then we'll get where we need to be. That's that.
But I don't think
put his phone in airplane mode. We'll be okay.
I don't think Powell has done a great job over his tenure. I'm not a fan, and I think he's made, like in particular, some crucial errors. But at this period of time, he's actually been managing things pretty well. And what I think is it's more important that our institutions stay institutions than allow an executive or the executive branch to trample over our entire democracy. And that's why everybody keeps warning Trump. It's not about whether you like Powell or not or whatever. It's the precedents you're setting is a bad precedence, because the Fed should be making decisions for what's best for the economy and not what's best for the president. Okay. And the president is always going to do what's best for the president, not what's best for the economy per se, or what they perceive as what's best for the economy. But the truth is that I hope Powell is strong enough to not resign. I don't think the $2.5 billion absurd bill for the Fed is some malfeasance. I think that that's actually quite normal for a government rebuild or whatever.
We're the smart people. We're not the people that, a lot of people are not as well thought as we are. So I wasn't saying it's going to be a hook. I'm saying they're going to try.
No, but I'm just saying, like, they could try to use that. And I think it's a legitimate thing that they're wasting so much money on the Federal Reserve, and people don't even come into the office anyways. But the point being is that I think the Supreme Court's been compromised, and I think it's a big problem for this country. And Alito needs to resign, and Thomas needs to resign. They're clearly not independent, impartial judges. I think the Federal Reserve needs to, stick up for itself, and he should serve out his term till next year, and then Trump can appoint whoever he wants. But it's more important to have the integrity of our institutions. And just why I wouldn't say I support Trump, but I support democracy. Trump won the election. That's what's happened. I don't like it, but I support our country, and some of the things he's done have been good. Most of the things I haven't liked, but we lost the election for probably a good reason, and so now the Democrats are loading up for, a couple of years from now. And who do I got? I got Gavin Newsom and AOC. And I'm like, that's worse.
And
No.
and I want to piggyback off that, and Fred, I want to go over to you. When you look at some of the consolidated power, I mean, one man controlling interest rates, one man controlling tariff policy. There's got to be
that's actually not legal either. It's not supposed to be like that.
There's got to be investment risk in that. It's happening, and
I've always been
investment risk when a brain fart or a tweet can rock markets the way that it is.
And as efficient as the markets are, what's going on behind the scenes, and this is only going to get worse. Two things: one, there's more non-professionals and professionals in the market because everyone's in it on the 401k. Two, the market, that price of any stock is supposed to be a present value of what that stock should be worth. And sometimes it's overvalued because people like it more. But over the last 40 years, since all of us are dollar cost averaging in our 401k into an S&P 500 stock fund, there's companies that are valued up here, not because they're worth it, but because everyone buys a piece of it every week in their paycheck. That's not supposed to happen either. So the bloatedness of some of the companies out there, some are overvalued, just like football players, overpaid for their contract, underpaid for the contract. But if you keep buying up a contract because it's in your 401k to buy that, there's a ton of companies that the present value and the value of the stock is really inflated because everyone's buying it and no one's really selling it yet because most people are still invested in retirement.
I agree with that, and I would just make a little twist to that.
Sure.
Part of that is because nobody can go public anymore.
Right.
So like there's no IPOs. I mean, like, how many IPOs have you seen? In the old days, we'd have IPOs every week. I'd be analyzing stocks, and I'd be like, oh, there's 10 companies every week going public. And then as an investor, we have these choices to make, and some of them are good ones, right? That doesn't exist. And so what you're saying is true. We've had a mindless market where they buy the Vanguard S&P 500. Vanguard votes for management no matter how bad they are. Okay, it doesn't matter. And then what's happened is the average Mag 7 company that used to trade at like a 20 PE now trades at like a 30 PE because they are the best companies in the world and there just aren't other choices. Right. So the valuation of what these best companies are getting has just gone up because there's not other companies that are as good, and there's not choices to, it's kind of like, when Bitcoin does really well and Bitcoin rallies, and all of a sudden all the crap coins start going up because people will take their profits from Bitcoin and then they'll buy all these crap coins. And the better Bitcoin does, the more crap coins come out, and it's like, because that's unregulated, And then when everything falls apart, they all go under,
Back to Bitcoin, or they sell and go to cash.
But the closest example was 2021, where we had the SPAC craze, which was a bunch of garbage, it turned out. So IPOs are definitely better than SPACs. We learned that lesson. But the idea as an investor is you're looking for opportunities, whether it doesn't matter what it is, real estate, stocks, private companies, loans, and there's just such an undersupply of investments, yet the capital keeps flowing in to less and less stocks, essentially, and so it's created. So part of it is troubling and part of it is not. Apple maybe trades at 28 or 30 times earnings, but Apple still just prints money. Right. And so you're just paying, like, people just accept, because there are not alternatives to Apple that are as good, that will just pay more for that Apple. You know what I mean?
The ones that are probably private. They're doing AI stuff privately.
Right. So now private companies valuations are out of control because
that's where the money's going. Like, serious people aren't going into the market at all these time highs where they don't control it. And the thesis for the market is buy, hold, and hope. I buy Tesla today, hoping that Ross is a bigger idiot than me to buy it tomorrow for twice the price. I'm not sure.
Well, not if the company's really profitable, because then they can buy back stock, like Apple has done for years, and
it drives the price up. But for the most part, I have no control on the price of stock if I buy it. However, private equity, as an example of a proxy of the market, and where, if you have this as a choice, where that money's going, because it used to go in the market, where's it going? Private equity is the Richard Gere Pretty Woman. They'll buy a company, put them together. But like real estate, you're not buying the nicest place on the street. You're buying the house where the ant with all the cats died in, and you got to fix it up. That's where the value is, and has nothing to do with the market. It's a real business transaction.
Yeah, but most private equity doesn't actually do that. Most private equity is just buying private companies, not actually fixing companies. Most of the private equity people I've dealt with add zero value. Actually, they're just trying to make EBITDA and trying to make numbers work. And they're looking at what they're buying.
There's carve outs out there. The ones I was thinking of, they work with retiring baby boomers that own a fast food, and they put the CapEx in, they roll it up and then sell it.
Yeah, there are operator private equity firms, and those are probably the ones you want to invest in because they are adding value. It's just like people who think they're going to make money flipping houses. I'm like, you're not adding any value. You're just hoping that there's a bigger idiot than you. Yeah.
The lesser fool.
Right. So like when you buy a house, you should expect to like invest in it if you want it to go up in value, and it will if you remodel it, you make it better, you landscape, make it bigger, whatever. But if you just buy stuff hoping it's like the same thing's going to be worth the same and it doesn't do anything great, it's like, and
there's a ton of people that did that, Ross, with those zero interest loans we just mentioned. They're the ones who are going to get they finally think they know what they're doing, and they don't. They were just making money because interest rates are so cheap. There's a ton of commercial real estate that I don't know who's going to buy it. Obviously, some of these offices are not ever going to be office fully,
there's commercial real estate all over the place I would argue that most private equity valuations is bullshit. The way a private equity fund works is completely opposite than like my ETF or any stock investor's portfolio, because like they'll say SpaceX is worth $400 billion because they raised $3 at that valuation. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, I always say it's not worth $400 billion. It's worth how much cash they've put into the company plus what their operating business is worth. Right. It's not just this valuation you assign to sell 1% of your business, and now try to sell 100% of it at 400 billion, then it'll be worth 400 billion. But, good luck finding that,
Right. So
private equity, it's nice because you can tell people that there's no volatility, like private companies don't have volatility for some reason. So you don't mark your prices, hopefully you ever down. You don't mark it. You never mark them down, right. Because you won't raise money.
That's not a benefit. Yeah. And there's some people that, so that's just a proxy of it. What we're seeing in multiple industries that are the answer to Brian's question of is aggregation is played out in many, many different forms. You can get, and all aggregation is for it. You're buying small stuff. You're adding value to it somehow, if it's oil and gas, putting extra derricks on to get better ROI at the smaller level. And then you capsulate that into a bigger portfolio and you upsell it to ExxonMobil or Chesapeake Energy. Well, that's energy. You can do that in fast food. You can do that in real estate. That's not fast food. Obviously, a lot of private equity kind of do what Ross was talking about. They don't really jigger much, but they kind of put it together, make it look better, tweak some EBITDA, put 5 companies together, and then
fire people. They fire people. That's what they do.
Yeah. And sometimes they fire the guy that's making $300 but doing an $80,000 analyst. As a capitalist, I'm like, that's maybe good for him for the years he got away with it. But at the end of the day, if you're doing an $80,000 job, you probably should get paid $80,000. I'm a crazy person that way. So there are some bloated property, companies that are out there. But when you're private, you can make more. You have the ability. You don't always do it. The ability to make more strategic decisions because you don't have to make your numbers next quarter. And I think that's one of the reasons these private companies stay in private. They don't need the headache. And as long as they're getting funding by private credit or private equity, direct to institutions or roll-ups or family offices like us, they don't need to go to the market because they're getting the capital and they have less baggage. That if you're buying private equity, you're not selling it tomorrow. There's a lockup. There could be a capital call.
Well, also private equity is like where entrepreneurs go to die. It's like they build up a business, they sell it, and then they like go work at a private equity firm so they can feel like they're still entrepreneurial. But what they're really doing is going into businesses that maybe they have some knowledge about, but just trying to become the CEO again or reapply the same system that worked for them in your business. And what I really found from a lot of these people, especially we were talking about disruptors like Elon, if you're a disruptor, they don't get you at all, because the intangible, they don't get the intangibles that aren't on the balance sheet. No. Like the Elon intangible. Like, why is Tesla worth 170 times earnings? It's not. But there's an Elon, I always say there's an Elon valuation in there, and you can call it whatever number you want. I think Tesla's worth 150 plus Elon, Right. And so right now the market's saying that Elon plus is worth another 150, but they might one day decide that Elon isn't worth another 150.
You're a detractor because of Elon. Yeah. It's not worth what it was.
Right. And I call the discount when Apple traded 17 times earnings.
And I want to pivot this conversation into a particular sector where we are seeing private investment boom, and that is the cannabis beverage sector. Dave, I wasn't really following this until I saw a lot of your coverage on this sector dripping into my LinkedIn feed. I mean, you've been covering this more closely than anybody I follow. But after seeing your post, I've done some research. I mean, this looks like a promising budding industry where there could potentially, I know we said those unicorns don't happen. There might be some unicorns in this budding sector. Dave, what are you seeing in that sector?
I didn't think about this when I was talking to you the other day, Ross. I should interest you in this sector because just about every corner of the alcoholic beverage segment is getting crushed. You just saw the CEO of the biggest liquor company in the world, Diageo, walk out, I think, yesterday. And what you're seeing is, and no one's paying attention into the mainstream media, cannabis beverages are exploding. I mean, we are talking about a growth curve straight up. And in the state of Minnesota, basically, is where ground zero has occurred, where they legalize these beverages straight away, right out of the gate. If you go into a liquor store or even a grocery store in Minnesota, you will see 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 even coolers full of THC drinks, beverages that compete with the size of the craft beer segment. And we're talking about a segment that's been there for 30 or 40 years against a segment that's been there 2 or 3. The biggest liquor store owner there, he owns top 10 liquors. He's doing between 10 and 15% of his overall sales in THC drinks in 2 years. That's up against wine and beer and spirits. He says he's never seen anything like the growth curve here because, one, as I think some people on this podcast could probably agree, being high is a little bit more enjoyable than being drunk. A lot of people are into the health and wellness aspect of cannabis, and younger people just aren't drinking. Gen Zers just don't drink for whatever reason it is. I know there are many. All these factors contribute to a business that is going to explode. And I will tell you, there's no one in it yet that has really, the first mover advantage was squandered by some of the biggest ones. And no one has found the perfect dominant beverage just yet. It's still time for several others to come in. I drink them all the time. I actually just
you do. You drink. Which ones do you drink?
This is one I love. It's called Pharos, but I have a whole fridge down here. Maybe I can bring this. Hey, you know what? Let's try something.
Because I actually don't.
It's like a Blair Witch thing. Like, bring us with you. Yeah. I think I'm a big cigar smoker, and Cuban cigars don't taste any better, but there's that taboo part of it. And I think there's definitely, if you have a
I think Cuban cigars taste pretty good, but I'm not a cigar smoker. But.
Yeah. But that taboo part, you can't underestimate how valuable it is. They want an experience. They want to try something new. And how many times you're going to have a microbrew? And I love microbrew.
So Dave, I haven't found a cannabis drink that I actually really like. And there's several reasons. And, I think I don't want to have to drink like 4 drinks to get high. I mean, that's like,
time value of money.
Too much liquid. Right. Too much liquid. It's kind of like why I don't like beer. It's like I don't want to have to drink 4 beers to get drunk.
You got an 8% IPA, Ross. I'll send you one.
Right. That's what I do. I mean, I'll have
golden monkeys. You're good.
But I agree with what Dave said. I actually don't prefer to be drunk versus high. I have to function every day, and
and hangovers as you get older, hangovers are bigger and bigger. I'm like, oh.
Drinking's super bad for you, actually, and it ages you. Now I'm old, so it's like it ages you very quickly as well. And boy, if I show you a picture of me and my friends from high school, and you could pick out the drinkers from the non-drinkers in 1 second. You know what I mean? But cannabis has become huge, not only just because it's legal and the social stigma has changed, but the younger generation gets this. Like, they get this health part of it.
A lot less calories. Yeah, it's so. Dave, who's your favorite player that's out there? I know there's not someone that's
real quick. What you said, Ross, is interesting because most of my issue with the beverage category is more than 70% of the sales are 10 milligrams and above per can. For me, I'm still a lightweight. Like 10 milligram drink, I'm done. And I don't want one of anything. Like, I take a 5 milligram edible a lot of nights. So what I like is
you're like a lightweight, dude.
Oh yeah. I like a 2 milligram drink so I can have 3
Oh
or
my
4.
God.
And so
It's
like this is, do you know who Charles Beeler is? He is you probably know the guy. He's in the wine business. Really
know.
chill, awesome guy. He's your kind of dude. I'm shocked you don't know
I'd like
him.
to meet him if he's a wine.
He has
cannabis
done
guy.
this brand, which is margaritas. Unbelievable, but they're too strong for me. I told him myself, I said, give
At
me
10
a
milligrams?
milligram. That's 10.
Yeah, see, I think they should be 20 milligrams, the drinks.
You are a heavy doser. Now, see, that's too much.
Well,
for
I'm just
me.
saying, I want one. I want one drink. You know,
So
like
these are terrific for you. I'll send you some. I'll have Charles send you some.
yeah,
This
please.
is my favorite in terms of
Is that
the
can?
size. What's
No,
that?
I've had can. Can's good.
So I like
can.
I'm actually an investor in can, and that's who I mean squandered first mover advantage. I think they're okay. I think
they could have had it all.
They've overraised. I think this brand right here is the one that hits the best. It's called Happy.
What's that say?
It's called Happy.
Happy.
With an
I
I.
love the name. I mean,
Yeah.
what,
And it
what
does.
more do you need than a drink called Happy? You know,
Right. And now these are,
especially in this day and age.
I like the small dose, but they have larger 10 milligram dose drinks. So those would be my 2 favorites in addition to Pharos right here. And I will tell you,
Dave, I had no idea that you were a cannabis drinker, but I would love to come out and have a cannabis drinking day. Yeah.
when are you coming out, baby?
I'm old school, you know, I'm old school. I smoke it, you know, like I don't vape, you know, a
joint or
a bong. Yeah.
a bong? Really?
Yeah.
I haven't hit a bong since college, man. I think that would
dude, it would knock you out. It would knock you off your socks with your 5 milligram drink.
Dave, just stand next to Ross. You'll get secondhand and you'll be fine.
Oh, my
No,
wife.
I'm friends with a lot of people in the cannabis industry. I've been an investor in the cannabis industry, and actually my ETF is run by Advisor Shares, which runs the cannabis ETF. And so, you know, I've interacted with. I'm actually really close with Glasshouse Farms, which unfortunately was just raided by ICE, and they killed one of the workers there, and it's a mess. But that said, the cannabis industry is a huge industry that is they're treated so unfairly by the federal government. It's just unbelievable. They literally raided a cannabis farm to bust illegal workers and didn't touch one plant, even though they're still federally illegal. And I find the hypocrisy in the federal government over cannabis legalization to be one of the greatest injustices of modern time.
It's bonkers. And what I don't like, though, about investing in cannabis, and I never would have until the beverages came
Well,
along.
I've lost money in it several times.
That's why I always said to people, it's a bad investment because people don't care about brands. And with beverages, it's all branding and it's all brand loyalty. Whereas with marijuana, no one cares. No one knows. I know
I don't know if I agree with that statement.
dude, you're in the tiny niche minority. 90% of the people that use cannabis have no idea what type of gummy, what type of joint, what type of
I don't think there's the brand recognition like in drinks. I agree with that.
and there never will be. But I'll tell you what I'm eyeing, and I think another space you should be eyeing. I wouldn't be shocked from my friends at Capitol Hill. They think mushrooms, psilocybin, could be legal first.
Well, it's
Or
kind of
marijuana.
legal already here. I mean, people are making microdose chocolates like by the 1,000.
And they
here in
sell them
Texas.
on legit websites that don't even hide.
Yeah, you can go buy them in a store. You can go buy them in a store.
Instagram advertisements for them. I get
Like there's no
Instagram
barrier to getting those.
What was that, Brian?
I get Instagram advertisements for them. There's a new Cheech and Chong brand.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
don't know why they're in my feed, but they're
Then that's not psychedelic. Then that's
Okay.
No, they're selling the psychedelics. Like you can go buy them in a store.
right, but not on Meta. Meta's very
No,
good.
Meta doesn't even allow weed ads. I
Right.
thought
Meta's
But-
very good at policing that. But yeah, I think
Or
mushrooms are going to be the next explosion. I think these will do
Well,
very
no, that's
well.
already happened, dude. I mean, if I go out with a bunch of people my age, there's probably more people microdosing than smoking weed. Like I'll be like, does anybody want to smoke weed? And they're all like microdosing. And I
Is that
don't
right?
I don't
How
actually
old are you?
believe in microdosing. I only believe in what I call macrodosing. And so, you know,
Wait,
I
how
don't
old are
get
you?
I don't get the whole thing personally, but
How old are you?
I've been to a lot of dead shows.
And so when
That's
you
the
say
thing.
macro dosing, you take a whole cap and
I don't take anything anymore because I macrodosed for a period of time in my life during the dead years. And at 23 years old, I reached a point where there was nothing I could gain anymore by doing drugs. And so I stopped. And it was, right before Jerry died. And, I can tell you stories for the 5 podcasts full of stories of how lucky I am. I'm still alive and crazy stuff, And I think I was telling you this the other day. I'm actually one of the few people that hung out with Tim Leary, the godfather of acid. Yeah. And I got to hang out with him for a good couple hours at a bar. And it was one of the more cool things of my life, in the sense of, at that time, I thought I was super cool, So I know a lot about psychedelics.
So I want to jump back in. We are right at an hour. I want to thank Fred Hubler, Dave Briggs, Ross Gerber. Amazing conversation, guys. I will be dripping out little snippets of this conversation over the next couple of weeks. And I feel like the 4 of us are going to continue this offline. Excited for that conversation.
He's already drinking his cannabis. What are you on the East Coast?
Thanks so much.
It's 3:00.
Oh man, I got to still do